because I'm looking on the face. Oh, now.
Webinar is now streaming live on
Facebook.
I have a notification on my left top.
Yes,
here.
me too.
Woo!
So, but it's in Zoom. So yeah, here it is. It just popped up.
Live! It's alive!
All right, I'm there.
Yeah.
Woo!
I don't know. So if you're just joining us and we're having difficulties learning this new technology, but live technology doesn't always work the way we want it to. So, oh well.
I mean, we're really having fun trying to figure it out, but you know, hanging out with the Davids.
With the David trifecta here. I mean, not trifecta, but we're one of them now. Yeah. Hey.
Right. Yeah. I'm just hanging out between them.
I'll have to ask my son how he does it because he does this better than I do.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll take notes from him. It'll be great.
So, yeah. All right. So being the one guy in this trio that we've got going here on Facebook Live, I'm a little apprehensive of sharing things that I noticed that are so man-like of these characters.
Okay.
This whole these two people.
Right.
It was like sometimes I felt like, oh, that's spot on. I don't know if everybody catches this stuff, but I was like, oh, that's how we think. That's how we are.
Well, we need examples, I think.
Well, a lot of it was like this one-upmanship kind of thing, and
okay,
territorialism.
Very.
The phone call to the wife, the ex-girlfriend or whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, no matter who we are, there's probably a little bit of insecurity there, and we play that game a little bit.
Your comment and your thought is exactly one of the questions that I wrote down, because I said to Aubrey, I was like, how much jealousy was there in this movie? There was a lot of jealousy, like from like what you said, the phone call to Sarah and that conversation with Betsy, and then even David to David, because David Lipsky looked at David Foster Wallace like, this is who I want to be, right? Like he was so jealous of him and his life. But I was like, what was there really to be jealous of? You know what I mean? But there was a lot of jealousy in that movie. You're right, absolutely.
And I think too,
yeah, sorry.
Like the grass is always greener on the other side, and then like that was one thing that came to my mind while watching it. But anyways, Steve, sorry.
No, that's true, and it's no matter who you are, you look at the guy across the table and you're like, oh, that guy's got this and this going on, and I wish I had that. And I think maybe it's not just a man thing, maybe it's like everybody kind of thing, but it seems that way, I guess, when you look at the media, that everybody's looking to do like one better than their neighbor, and it's hard to put that down and say, hey, I just care about these people for who they are and get that relationship going. But yeah, both very, very much afraid of who they are, I think, in some ways, and fear of being exposed.
I thought too, it was like, well, it's a human tendency to do this. It's not a great one to do, but, like when you don't know someone super well, or in this case, they had just met, it was easy for them at first, or definitely all throughout the movie, but especially at first, to just select like, oh, well, he's an author and he's famous, or da-da-da. I want to be a famous author, and to not consider like what actually goes along with that or who he is. Like, it's so easy to say, this is your label, this is what you are, without digging deeper into it. So I felt that was part of it too. And, it was said many times by David Foster Wallace that, you might think this, but this is not the case, or like, this is as sexy as it gets, when he has the driver, and, different things like that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it kind of I that too with the one or two books published doesn't make you a multimillionaire with a big pool and um, the chauffeur and everything that I don't know. I don't know what authors make. I think a lot of them live very simply.
I think maybe if he didn't write such a big book, maybe if it wasn't 1,000 pages, he could have split it up into 3 or 4 books, maybe like everybody
There
else does. Maybe that would have been a better tactic for him. I don't know. Something else that I thought was weird was, yes, he idolized him, but this was the first time that he met him and really didn't know much about him besides that. And yet he spent the night at his house. I just thought that was really weird. And I don't think, I would ever do that, but maybe that's back to a guy thing. Like, oh yeah, I can take care of myself.
There was definitely some awkwardness.
Yeah, the dog, the dog for sure. I mean, hey, how you doing? My dog does that, jumps in every morning. But I just thought that was very strange.
Yeah.
I think I've had experiences like that, where it's like, oh, this guy's letting me stay in his house and he doesn't even know me. I was younger, but
Yeah.
and it wasn't anything like super weird, but it was just like, oh yeah, no problem. I can do this. This is awkward, weird, strange, but I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
When I was younger.
See, now you didn't finish the movie, but I think that it might have ended differently if maybe he would have stayed at a hotel. You know what I mean? Like if they weren't there together all the time. I don't know, Aubrey, what do you think?
I think so. I just think too, like one thing I think of even with myself is, there's certain people that I love, 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 but if I spend all day 24/7 with them, then things are going to get a little tension filled. And they, as two strangers, did that. At least that's what it appeared like. And one, no matter what, I feel like even the people you're closest with, you're not, and we know this during the times right now, people are being tested on this. It's hard to be stuck with someone, right? And I felt like in this case, two people who didn't know each other, they had the kind of territorialism building at different times too, and some jealousy, etc. I thought if they had taken a break, or if the David stopped interacting with their friends, or that kind of thing, that maybe it would have been better if they had just treated it more as, this is an interview, not me hanging out with you for 5 days straight.
Right. But I also think that David Lipsky's book, although of course you end up becoming yourself, probably wouldn't have done as well if they didn't spend all that time together. Right?
Yep.
Or this movie.
Exactly. Although I really don't love the title unless there's a great reason why. If that was a big quote that he brought up that I didn't catch in the movie, that's just so long.
Yeah, I didn't catch it either. If there's anybody watching this, we do have that available on Hoopla, his book. It's on audiobook, so we can post a link, or you can look on Hoopla if you want to read the book. And then we did look for Infinite Jest too, right, Aubrey?
Yep.
Which is the actual book that David Foster Wallace wrote, and it's available on Overdrive. So if anybody's interested in that, that's somebody who's watching, they can check that out there too on our digital.
And if you're terrified to read a 1,000-page book, the Hoopla features basically the spark notes of Infinite Jest. They don't have the book, just the spark notes.
Yeah. Yeah. But we can definitely put some links in the comments about all that. But yeah, we did want you to know that information too.
The Village of Little Shoot did ask a question. They said, so can we get a rating on a Rotten Tomatoes scale on the movie for our esteemed movie experts? I am not a movie expert. Aubrey is though, so she can do that.
to be fair, Karen watches a lot of movies, and Karen and I have different. We have overlapping
Pass
movie
the
tastes.
buck.
We
But
do.
they're
We have, yeah, right?
I will share mine, but that being said, you have to know, like, sometimes I recommend some odd stuff, and library staff are like, but why? And I'm like, it's great. So do take that always with a grain of salt for my reviews. I would give it, so Rotten Tomatoes does like percentages. I don't know when it's fresh, but you want a higher number. I would give it like 80s to 90s. I would never give a movie 100%. It was really well done. The only thing is they were great at having a narrative that you have to remind yourself isn't all there is to it. You're seeing 5 days in the life of these two guys where life happened a long time before and a long time afterwards. But long story short, I would give it like, let's say an 85 out of 100 or 8.5 out of 10 stars.
I don't know. I'm gonna say that you're not a movie expert if you can't do the Rotten Tomato scale, right?
I did Rotten Tomatoes. I gave it 85 first.
Okay. I thought you were totally on board with the Rotten Tomato scale.
No. I mean, I do enjoy seeing what things are certified fresh, but then sometimes I like to make fun of it too.
Right.
I was just looking at accolades for the movie, and the Golden Trailer Awards, it was nominated for Best Independent, and on the Independent Spirit Awards, Best Male Lead, Jason Segel. Is that how you say it? Or is it Segal? He also was nominated for the Chicago Film Critics Association, San Diego Film Critics Society. I mean, he was nominated a lot for this movie. I really enjoyed him because like Aubrey said earlier, I've seen both of these characters in different movies. So I was thinking it was going to be a little more quirky. I mean, it was quirky, but it was very serious. Yeah, it was very serious, but I really enjoyed it. I would I don't know, I'm trying to think what percentage I would give it, but I'd say probably 85. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And I sat for 2 hours and watched this movie. I didn't get up one single time. So I really enjoyed it. So yeah. It won the best independent poster at the Golden Trailer Awards, but everything else he was nominated for.
Oh, well, I never saw the poster.
Oh, it's on our site, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I did see it. I just didn't take note of it.
Didn't realize it was the poster. Yeah.
It was the best poster.
I don't think it's the image that Hoopla uses either, but I would have to double check that.
I'll go back and look at it, but I'm not touching anything because I don't want to go off the air again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's the one where it's this cassette, and then it's this, it's pulled out, and then it's a picture of the two of them. Yeah.
Do you think that people who will start watching it and say they're like, like obviously movies last forever. Do you think that it's going to reach a point that someone will watch this movie and say like, what is that thing that he's playing? Why is his voice coming?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And how did they
we don't use those.
Play it on this projector?
Yeah. I don't know if I would have given, I don't know what to rate this on a Rotten Tomatoes scale for sure, because I was, a lot of movies that are very uncomfortable to watch, are really good movies. So I guess I'd probably be that 90%, but.
So we all liked it.
I did like it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I liked it, but I was uncomfortable through the whole thing. It is an awkward conversation. These two guys didn't really hit it off, but they kind of acted like they were hitting it off. But it was because of work, maybe. I don't know. It just seemed like really awkward.
I think it's because he spent the night. I really do. I think if he would have went to the Days Inn or wherever he was supposed to stay, it would have been much better.
I think too, they crossed so many boundaries, which is probably also because of the staying overnight. But it was just like so many boundaries were crossed, because usually in an interview, it's like, okay, I have my plan, you have yours, but we're going to have these questions. It also didn't help either that, the person who was being interviewed, he even, there's a point where he says that, like, oh, if I could, I would have you write the article and then I would edit my words. Like, he wasn't happy with himself to such an extent that he would say these deep things and then he would want to take it back, or I think he was afraid to reveal himself. And when you're spending 5 days 24/7 with your well, not 24/7, 24/5, I guess, but when you're spending that time with your interviewer, they're going to see your pros and cons, and he only wanted his pros shown. Like, that's going to ruin it no matter what.
Well, that's what we all want, right? We all want that, like, fame and notoriety for the wonderful things we do, and like, don't talk about the things that I did when I wasn't in my best character, right?
Yeah. And not that this is a spoiler, but I thought it was interesting too, like, a lot of times throughout the interview, like, there was the hint about, like, oh, David, the interviewer, was trying to figure out how to bring up the heroin possibility of the problem. And, there's that point where there's kind of a monologue about, like, oh, I'm addicted to TV, not heroin, or da-da-da. And I don't know if that was BS or not, or what, but I thought that was an interesting point. I've never heard someone say it about being addicted to TV. I think right now we're addicted to looking at our screens because people aren't able to do much else. Do we all have an addiction to TV now? I don't know.
At least some kind of screen of some sort, probably.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theme here that I thought kind of played out today. The fear of being alone and a fear of a society moving towards being alone, which kind of we did recently in some ways. I mean, we're social creatures, but the lack of connection. So I thought that was kind of an interesting theme for today. That was mentioned at some point during the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's worth talking more about or not.
That's definitely a topical one.
Well, I don't know. Is there anything else we should talk about as far as the movie goes? Did you have other questions or thoughts? Karen's the studious one, I think.
I'm reading my notes. Well, I was going to ask, I don't want to ruin the ending for Steve, so.
Oh, go ahead and ruin it.
Hold on a second. Are you sure? I mean, it's not really ruining it, but at the end, well, I guess it kind of is. At the end, he sends him that box, right, Aubrey? And
yes.
Did you think it was strange that he was expecting more in the box than so he forgot a shoe, Steve, and he sends him the box, his shoes back, a shoe. And the way that David Lipsky was looking through the box, it was like, what else is there? Like, he pulled all the packaging out. He almost looked in the shoe. Like, I thought it was strange that he was expecting him to send him more after they did this interview. I don't know. I thought that was very strange, but I think he was expecting more because, they had like a moment kind of at the end, like right outside before he left. But I thought that part was strange, that he was expecting, I don't know what he was expecting. Comments on a book, maybe? I don't know. What do you think, Aubrey?
Well, so we had pondered this question when we were planning our Facebook event anyways. So I've had some time to think about it. So, but anywho, my first thought was, I agree. I think that, he was expecting more, and, maybe he wanted, I don't know, a signed book, or I don't know what he wanted, like, or just a review on his book. I felt like at the end, when David, our interviewer, gives David, the author, his book, he was really putting himself out there. And then I thought about it on a deeper level, because I was like, I feel like this movie has a lot of symbolism or deeper themes that I should probably try to read into, or, to get more out, blah, blah, blah. Then I was like, is it kind of just like the symbolism of like, we know that David, the interviewer, felt very connected to David, the author, because he writes a whole book on it, and that's what he's known for, right? So I almost wondered, like, did it mean so much more to him in that time than he realized? But then, like, for him, maybe it was just so hard to like realize that meant so much to him, but it didn't mean so much to the other person involved. Because I think that's something that, like, we've all had times where something is like, we had a moment, it means a lot, and then you kind of get that rejection, and I was like, oh man, that's deeper than I wanted to go. But
because even his
all
note
have times of that.
Even his note was strange, because he wrote, assuming they're yours, or something like that, right?
Yeah,
it was like two words and a question mark, and that was it. So I thought that
there was a
really
smiley
strange.
face at least.
Yeah, there was a smiley face. Yeah.
It's like the emoji from a really lazy text. At least there's a smiley face.
Yeah. I also thought that it was strange that it didn't actually turn into a Rolling Stone interview. Like, they never published it. So I thought that was really strange. Like, they sent him out there for all these days, but he didn't do anything with it until 2 years after he passed away.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah. Like, his boss, I don't know what he's called, they didn't do anything with it afterwards. And then, at the beginning of the movie, he gets the call that, he had passed away, or, and he pulls out his tapes, and then he writes this book. So
I wonder how many of those,
really long title.
I wonder how many interviews are like that, though, where they just decide it's not right, it's not the time for it, and
right,
it just gets left.
Yeah.
Well, that's the only part that kind of that's why I can't give the movie a 100 or a full 90, because it shows how great they were at editing and writing it. But, like, they left out some important things, I thought, because they never mentioned this article never got published. You had to look that up yourself, and like, that's part of the story too. Just some of those facts or something of the sort, or like, they didn't really do a follow-up on the characters. Did they actually specifically say, by the way, David, the interviewer, he wrote a book about this interview? I don't even recall them actually directly saying that, other than based on a book. And then, like, he does do a reading, but how would me, the viewer, not know that he wasn't just like reading something he wrote later as an article? Or
right. Yeah. I mean, he was obviously reading from his book about this, but yeah, they didn't really point that out too much. So
That would have been powerful for those of us who are readers and care about books.
My only other mild critique, I'll call it, not complaint, was I thought they showed the power of putting some really great indie music with a montage of someone looking happy, because we do see a dance scene and you feel some emotion, and I was like, that's cop out. I shouldn't feel emotion. Why do I care that someone is dancing? Okay.
Yeah.
And the dancing bit that they even brought up, I thought was weird, personally, just how they put it in there.
And you also get to see some more of his personality when, like, after the credits, like, there's a sneak, like what the Avengers or Marvel movies all do. There's a little end credit something where David Foster Wallace picks up the tape recorder and is like talking into it while what's his face is in the bathroom reading his medicine cabinet. So don't, when you get to that, Steve, don't stop at the credits. There's a little, little snippet at the end. So which
All
I
right.
enjoyed thoroughly because I'm a huge Marvels fan, and they always do that. And, all those.
I was just
I
hanging
thought that
around
was
listening
great.
to the indie music and discovered that.
Yeah,
So,
and
you
then
know,
it popped in. Yeah.
like, oh, how
Yep.
pleasantly surprised.
I find that I do that a lot with movies now because, when you watch a Marvel movie or whatever, you're always waiting, so I tend to watch them just to see what pops up. So
I'm not gonna lie. I've seen a movie in theaters. I do Google, like, does this have an end credit scene? Because I don't
Yeah.
want to go without it.
Right. And you don't want to sit there if there isn't anything. It seems
Exactly.
silly. Right.
Well,
All right.
we've been live for
think we-
24 minutes, it says.
Woo!
Yeah.
Well, for
Did you
those
want to
two
talk about anything? Yeah, go ahead, Aubrey.
Well,
Your turn.
Oh, I was just gonna say, unless Karen has some more things to add, which she totally can, do you know that our game plan is we have our next movie that we're working on. We're going to view it and see how it is, and then we'll promote that and get talking about it. Another Hoopla movie.
And is that Friday, next Friday?
no, it's going to be in a few weeks still. We haven't
Okay.
picked an exact date yet, right, Aubrey?
Yeah,
All right.
tentatively, like maybe the fourth Friday of the month. We're going to first make sure that this movie is a winner, and then we'll go from there.
Well, if people are watching this, maybe they want to put in a comment that says a good time for this kind of program would be. Not saying that I'm going to be game for any time that they suggest, but it might be good to have some a better idea of what if we're going to do this again, and I think we should, what our audience wants for us to when do they want us to be live?
And also, if anyone has movie suggestions for us, that would be awesome too.
Right.
We're willing to explore the movie realm.
We would like to
we're
keep it.
trying to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we'd like to keep it though to the Hoopla or the something that everyone can get it right now easily.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Just that, the movies would have to be something that we can, one of our digital resources so that everybody has access to it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And save one of those checkouts for the movie that you want to attend.
Right. All right.
Cool. Well, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on this for the next time and make comments if you have a movie title suggestion or if you'd like this at a different time of the day or a different day of the week. And we'll see what we can do. We'll take all comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh, and then we should also say, hey, if you do want to get materials from the libraries now, you can fill out the form on Facebook or on our webpage to request materials. And a few days later, we will call you to schedule a pickup time. So only the materials that are in our library at this point, but our people are working hard to fill those orders and make sure you get those in.
Yes.
Thanks. Bye, all.
Bye.
All right. I'm still trying to figure out how to stop this thing.